Okay, klaro na sa tanan? Lahat ba tayo dito makaintindi ng Tagalog or Bisaya? Because sometimes I might say something in our language, like in Bisaya or in Tagalog, and I want to make sure that everyone is able to understand what I'm saying, right?
Maybe sir, they can reply na lang via group chat if they don't want to speak.
Yes, you can reply. I think they're replying via group chat, but privately. Some of them are replying privately, but it's okay if you are a bit shy to reply to everyone, so you can do it via group chat. Okay, so I will just use so hindi makaintindi ng Tagalog or Bisaya. Okay, Bisaya. Okay, so I will use English, French, Spanish, Dutch, and Tagalog for this session. Okay? Yeah. Okay. So let us now discuss the history muna. Okay, balikan muna natin ang mga nakaraan. Balikan natin nakaraan ng internet. Paano tayo, how did we come in this stage in internet, where in the internet is now part of our everyday lives. The first thing in the morning we do is that we check our Facebook. Maybe some of you check your Facebook, and the last thing you're going to do at night is to check your um, how you say it, you check your messenger, something like that. Hindi naman ito nakaano slideshow. Okay, so if you have questions, do not hesitate to interrupt me by raising your hands if you want to speak, or you can just write it in the chat group. Ma'am Lige will help me monitor questions in the chat group while I give you the lecture. Okay? Okay, so let's have the history of the internet. So paano nga ba nagsimula ang internet? How did it start? Okay? And how did we reach this stage in our lives where wala pa din. How did it reach in this stage in our life where in the internet is sort of, it's really integrated in our everyday lives. So may mga picture dyan na mga tao na dyan. Some of them are alive, some of them are already dead. But these are the key people, okay, in the development of the internet. So let me ask you a question. What do you think? You can write it in the chat box or you can say it, okay? Or maybe I can just share you a Jamboard, okay? So that you can write your answer, okay? So I'm going to share you a Jamboard for that, so that you can write your answer. Everyone can participate. Okay, I'll share you a link to the Jamboard where you can. Sorry, not private. Okay, so that's the link. You can click that, and then you will be directed to a sort of a whiteboard where you can put your answers. Okay. So my first question is, I'm actually looking at the Jamboard now. Okay, so my first question is, what do you think is the main purpose of the internet? The main purpose of the internet. Okay, what do you think is the main purpose of the internet? I can write it in the Jamboard.
Sir, naka-view only access.
You only access?
Well, I have view only access.
Alala,
Sure.
wait. Ah, okay, view lang pala. Okay, I'll send a new link which will enable you to write on the board. Okay. So for you, what is the internet? What is the main purpose of the internet?
Sir, can I just say it here? My Jamboard is not loading. Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Sir, can I just say it here? Kasi hindi ko ma-open yung Jamboard.
Yeah. Okay, you
Hello.
can. Yes.
Okay, it's to collate and to gather ideas and spread it around.
By the way, when you say something, kasi ano pa tayo, di ba, yung simula pa. Can you please state your name?
Okay, sige. Hi everyone, I'm Yana. My answer for this one is to collate information and to spread it around the world.
Wow, that's right. Exactly. Around the world, Jude.
Million fans around the world.
Okay, good. Okay, I think your classmates also have the same idea about what's the purpose. So they say here it's basically about communication, connections. There's also the answer on centralized data and make it available for everyone. Yeah. Of course, you have this to connect people. And maybe there's also some less popular purpose of the internet, and that is to um, steal data, right? Or to conduct illegal transactions over the internet. Yeah. So yun yung mga less popular. But the main idea, you're right. Okay, the idea is for communication. So when you try to trace it, people, wala pang internet. How do we communicate without the internet? Wala pang internet. So how do we communicate? Pwede nyo rin isulat dyan. Okay? Kung ano yung ginagamit natin sa tingin nyo noon na wala pang internet. Kasi you mentioned communication. Okay, radio waves. Yes, correct. You have letters, correct? Messengers. Hindi pa na-invento ang letters. How do we communicate? Correct. Through saying something, right? No, yan ang pinakauna talaga, or making sounds. Okay? Sa animal world, ang ginagamit nila is they make sounds, or they try to signal, okay, by making sounds. So baby, how do baby communicate? Through horse ba? No, hindi, di ba? Through letters ba? How does the baby communicate? Through crying, no? So through that, yun ang talagang unang-una na pwede nating masabi that medium of communication. Kaya lang, the problem with that is that yung volume or yung voice nyo pwede ka maka-communicate siguro up to 500 meters, no? Or even up to a kilometer when the conditions permits it. Tama? So, kung ano na lang, short distance lang, is easy, no? It's easy to communicate short distance. Pero kung ano na siya, kung medyo malayo na, diyan na tayo gumagamit ng mga horsemen, okay? Or yung, tama yan, smoke signal, gumagamit tayo ng ganyan. Or we can also send letters. Kaya na-invento yung mga system of writing. It's not even to communicate real time, but we can also communicate not in real time by sending letters or by leaving behind writing. Okay? So yun ang ating mga ways sa pag-communicate. Kaya lang kung need na natin mag-communicate, nandito tayo sa let us say Philippines, tapos gusto nating kausapin yung friend natin sa Malaysia, hindi na tayo pwedeng sumigaw, no? Hindi na rin tayo pwede mag-smoke, send signals. Hindi na rin pwede yan. Pwede din tayong mag-send ng letters, but the thing is, it takes time. Okay? And possible na hindi dumating yung letter na yon. Kasi possible na na-intercept siya somewhere. Right? So kaya, diyan nagsimula yung idea ng tinatawag natin telecommunication. So when we say telecommunication, it is communicating from a distance, longer distances. And that is, later you will discover that the main motivation of the internet is actually telecommunication. But that's not the only thing. The message that we are going to send, that's one thing. The medium that we use to send the message, that's another thing. And the target recipient of the message, that's another thing. And through the development, long development, we are able to reach the stage wherein we can just use Messenger, we can just type in Slack, and our message will be received with less error to our target recipient in near real time. That is the internet. Okay, so I'll go back to my slide para makita natin yung, continue lang natin yung discussion natin. Okay. So, in the development of the internet, tatlo talaga yan, no? Even in other areas. Tatlong parts yan that work together to develop something or to popularize something. Ang una-una is yung government. Okay? Second is commercial, because that's the popularization of the technology to commercialize it. And of course, for educational purpose. What's not shown here is the innovators, the pioneers who make these things possible, or who were the first person who thought about these technologies. So paano kaya yan sila they work together? Paano yan sila, how did they figure in the development of the internet? So in this lesson, we will discuss the history of internet. You will try to explain what each of these component or what of this organization has to do with the development of internet. Okay, and then you are going to trace the development of internet from a simple machine called the telegraph until the World Wide Web. And you're going to identify the key people involved in this. Okay? And that will give you a, how you say it, will give you a idea of how a technology can evolve based on the needs and based on the pressure that is applied to the government. Okay. So let's go to the early innovations. So of course, lahat ng technology natin, we can trace it to the simple, no? To the simple things. So kaya lang yung sinabi ko, communication started with a word of mouth, then it became a letter, then we learn how to make sounds to convey messages, and then until we reach a point wherein we can communicate over longer distances. And the first of this is what we call the telegraph. Okay? So yun yung commercial telegraph. Itong si Cook in Wheatstone, what they did is they produced the first commercial telegraph. Okay? And this telegraph revolutionized human telecommunications. So how does this telegraph work? We will watch a short video later kung paano ito gumagawa ang telegraph. And then the first telegraph uses Morse code. No, alam niyo yung Morse code, no, yung may mga parang ganyan na sound. Yun ay Morse code. And it's quite the same as how the computers actually communicate now, and that is through binary. So you have dots and dashes. Yan yung Morse code. And then around 1858 to 1866, nagkaroon tayo ng tinatawag nating transatlantic cable. So what is mean by transatlantic cable is mayroon talagang cable that connects the United States and Europe. Okay? So they laid it down under the water. In fact, kahit ngayon, meron pa rin mga submarine telecommunications cable or communications cable. I will show you later yung submarine telecommunications cable that connects the whole of Southeast Asia to the mainland United States. Okay? And kagaya niyan, for example, kagaya yan yung ginagamit natin ngayon, no, sa telephone na may mga cables ka-connect. Halos the same yung idea niyan. And then itong cable na to, kaya siya tinawag na transatlantic kasi nga the ocean that separates the United States and Europe is the Atlantic. So this cable is stretched out from Europe to the United States. And that's what we call the transatlantic cable. Kaya lang, masan lang nila noon is puro lang sila, syempre, written, or masan nila is something like letters, okay, that represents letters. And in 1876, a certain person, no, Alexander Graham Bell, exhibited the first telephone. Okay? Although hindi naman talaga siya ang first, but he sort of popularized it. So, sa kanya parang nasabi na siya na invento. So, telephone. So, dito na yung voice, right? Okay, so we can actually use our voice to communicate longer distances via telephone. Okay? And then we have also the modems that provide digital to audio conversations to allow computers to connect over the telephone network. Okay, so let's watch here a small video on how telegraphs and telephone works. Marinig nyo ba yung audio? Hindi nyo marinig, no? I will share my computer sound. So let's watch here a video on how these telegraphs and telephone work.
For Samuel Morse's first telegraph. This is the actual transmitter for Samuel Morse's first telegraph. Code slugs, representing letters in a message, were put in place. When a crank was turned, the slugs moved under a lever, raising and lowering the other end to act as a switch. It sent the code by interrupting a current from a battery in short and long pulses. The signals traveled from the transmitter through wire to the receiver. Here, the pulses turn this electromagnet on and off, both pulling and releasing a lever. A pencil on the bottom of the lever recorded the code on a moving paper tape. This is how Morse code originally looked. This is an 1850 key-operated telegraph transmitter. Keying interrupted the battery current, sending long and short electrical pulses to a receiver. For long distance, a telegraphy relay was used. It received the original electrical pulses and retransmitted the signal with increased power. Miles away, the electrical pulses arrived at the receiver and caused an electromagnetic device to emboss dots and dashes onto a moving paper tape. David Hughes' telegraph used letters instead of Morse code. In this patent model, pressing a key on the transmitter moved a vertical arm that pushed a metal feeler from its resting place into the path of pins and a rotating drum. When these pins made contact with the feeler, they sent a pulse of electricity to a receiver, which was synchronized with the transmitter. There, a magnet pulled the correct letters against the tape. Alexander Graham Bell's first successful voice transmission was made over an instrument similar to this reproduction. In it, a needle moved in response to sound waves produced by a voice. They changed the amount of contact with salt water, and thus the amount of current flowing through the needle. Sound waves of the voice were reproduced as variations in electrical current, but the current also caused the water to decompose, producing unwanted static. To solve the problem, Bell created an induction transmitter. It worked by moving a membrane that induced varying electric current in a coil. At the receiver, the fluctuating current caused another membrane to move back and forth, reproducing the original sound.
So that's the idea or the how this telegraph and telephone